Okay, so now it's a bit twilighty at the moment. Daylight's nearly over. It's going to look a bit different. This is why I've got this Galaxy S8 Plus phone that I got almost exactly a year ago. I needed good white balance with this shitty bedroom light. So, yeah. I hate warm white fluoros. I like cool white. Cool white's my favourite. Unfortunately, that's not what they had installed in this unit, but I could put them in if I wanted to, but I'm not going to waste any money. It still looks a bit khaki even with this really nifty phone, but still it's much more tolerable. So it's bearable, so at least we're not having to put up with absolute brown, yellow shit, which totally ruins the whole experience of my videos. So yeah, let's hope this is good enough. But anyway, let's just get shitting along on this funny fuck-up machine called Konica Minolta BizHub C227. It's going to have a joke out of this silly piece of shit. But hey, just about every copier system built in this day and age is a fucking piece of shit. They don't last long enough. This Konica Minolta, apparently I heard, make their machines only last, get this, 5 years, as in spare parts availability. What a fucking bunch of idiots. Stupid CEO, the Japanese guy, no offence, it's not because he's Japanese, it's because he's a fucking money fucker. I discriminate against money fuckers. I make fun of them because they're just laughing stock, but they're not fucking funny for our planet. They're not fucking funny for the people who are vulnerable and poor. Look at all the Chinese slaves that would have gone into building this photocopier. The actual photocopier itself is made in China. Surprise, surprise, not. And the pedestal is made in Vietnam. I had a look at the labels on the back or the side of the machine, and it's fucking slave labour. You know, they choose these third world countries because they're cheap labour. They don't want to pay them. They're too fucking stingy, the bitches. Oh, fuck me dead. No, it's just not fair. For me to have this piece of equipment, I have to allow Chinese and Vietnamese slave workers. They are paid slaves. They're not just slaves, but I still class them as slaves. It's just not fair for them to have to work so fucking hard for a pittance to keep their family in food and shelter and whatever other stuff. I mean, shit, man, it's just so unfair. But what can I do? How can I have this equipment? It's like I can't have my fucking cake and eat it. I've got to fucking make a sacrifice, and these poor little workers are being sacrificed. So we could have equipment that's a little bit cheaper than what we'd have if this machine was probably made in Japan, which is where Konica Minolta originates from. Even Australia is guilty of using Chinese workers to build appliances or apparatus for Australian-made companies. You know, Australian-owned companies do it too. It's not just the Americans, it's not just the Japanese. It's just about everyone picks on the Chinese for cheap labour. But the poor Chinese have no choice. I know we can have a world where there is none of this slavery, where people can earn enough money to buy things that are more expensive. I mean, if it worked in the 50s, that home appliances can last for decades, not just a few years, without slave labour, with labour in Australia, for example, well, it can happen in the future. So why should we accept the status quo? But unfortunately, it's hard to break the status quo. You know, it's hard to break it. But what can I do? These big multinational fuckwits couldn't give a shit about the little guys. Now, what have we got going here? We're just going to clear that. So yeah, this is so unfair, but what can we do? You know, we still need the fucking equipment. I need this fucking machine. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with these rich people? What are they fucking on? They love the smell of money. That's obviously what their fucking high is. Man, I wish I could break the fucking bitches into a million pieces and fuck them over for hurting people, making people into slaves and expecting us consumers to accept this as the status quo. It's not the best, but we have to accept it. It's the status quo. No, I'm not going to fucking accept the status quo forever. One day I'm going to be building the best fucking photocopiers, and they're going to be built on Australian shores by an Australian-owned company. It's going to be a wonder. And it's going to be an artificially intelligent photocopier. And when I earn lots of money from being the CEO, I'm going to fucking give most of my money away. I'm not going to be a fucking asshole pig about it and keep it all for me, me, me. That's all the CEOs of today tend to say is me, 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 me. It's a bit like a company in Australia called Me Money. You know, ME, that stupid bank called Me. And it's like me, 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 me. It's like, oh, what a stupid name for a fucking bank. Obviously, they're onto something. They make fucking shitty ads for this stupid Me Bank. I think it's a bank. I don't think it's a building society. But it's a fucking dumbass rich people shit. And rich people make these dumb commercials. Another thing I hate immensely too about this over-commercialised world is when you go on a bus and you can't look out the window except through this stupid mesh. And on the outside of the mesh is advertisements. It's advertising mesh. I don't know what the actual trade name for it is, but it's fucking shit. And I'm always avoiding sitting in a seat next to that shit because, one, I don't like my view being obstructed. And yes, it makes it hard for you to see when it's raining what's where your bus stop is. And hey, if I sit in front of it, I'm just accepting the status quo. So what do is I make a silent protest and sit away from it. I sit in one of the few windows, if I can find them, but I always seem to find them, windows that are not covered with this fucking pathetic prison-like mesh. It looks like prison. You can't see the beautiful sunshine. You can't see the beautiful views of suburbia. You can't see much. It's fucking covered with this bloody mesh. And when it rains and you happen to be, and if there's mesh in front of you on the left-hand side of the fucking bus, how can you see out where you're going to get out of the fucking, when your bus stop is going to be there? So it poses practical problems as well as aesthetics, as really bad aesthetical problems. I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do to make this a better demo. But basically, I'm so fucked over with it. You know, I'm pissed off with capitalism and all these fucking rich people taking advantage of the poor, especially in third world countries like fucking China. I mean, seriously, these people got to be fucking put in jail. These rich people need to be locked away. Mr. CEO of Konica Minolta, yes, I'm talking to you. I know you. I don't know you personally, but I know you're a fuckwit. I don't even know your fucking name, and why would I? You're a fucking money fucker. Look at this machine. You got to press the button, 3 buttons or 3 times a button push to get a photocopy. It used to be just the start button. At least my old C353, you just needed to press a button once, not fucking 3 times. So we're just trying to make this look good. I think this is as good as it gets, but that's my fucking rant for the afternoon. So Konica Minolta and you rich people, you fucking suck shit. Go fuck yourselves.